coaches are up and leaving in the dead of night. Lincoln Riley leaves Oklahoma for USC. Brian Kelly leaves Notre Dame for LSU. I think there's 24 FBS schools that will change coaches this year, maybe more to come. Who knows? Players are leaving all over the place. You need a scorecard to keep up with it. I mean, Spencer Rattler, the Heisman Trophy favorite in some people's eyes when the season started, is in the transfer portal, leaving Oklahoma. On one hand, you know, we lived through an era where, you know, coaches would recruit players and preach loyalty, and then they would leave for another job. And that certainly didn't seem fair. So I guess if you sign with a school and your coach leaves, you have the chance to leave. So I guess we've dropped all pretenses. It is what it is. Like you said, the NFL junior, it's all about the money. Loyalty doesn't exist anymore anywhere.
But why should we be so surprised about this? I mean, seriously, we've seen college football become a multi-trillion-dollar business over the years, where the schools are cashing in, the networks are cashing in, the coaches are cashing in. Finally, the kids are at least able to try to cash in. So why should we be surprised? And why? And oddly enough, why should anyone care? I mean, isn't this just an extension of basically creating what has always been a professional league in essence?
Yeah, I think it is. I think we're finally able to be honest about it and call it a money grab, a big, huge billion dollar business. That's what it is. I mean, I know some of us try to cling to tradition, try to cling to the beautiful Saturdays of college football that we grew up watching, but it's just not that way anymore. It's just not. And we'll have to see how, you know, the acid runoff of this as the years pass, how it affects the game with not only the coaches leaving, the players leaving, the realignment. What this is going to look like in 5 years is anybody's guess. But right now, it's a complete free-for-all. And literally, if you don't pay attention for a day or two, you have no idea who's coaching where or where the players are. It's happening at warp speed.
When did that loyalty disappear, guys? I mean, Joey mentioned it, and there's coaches who had a loyalty factor. I'm not so sure if it's ever been there, and I'm going to go back to Howard Schnellenberger, who was a great friend. Howard came in, led the University of Miami to a national championship, and what was the first thing he did? He bolted for a spring football league. Bang, gone. It's after all that he had done. So isn't loyalty a little bit overdone at this point? I mean, aren't we just kind of living in a fantasy world when we talk about that word with college coaching?
Unless the coach is coaching at his alma mater. And soon you're not going to have that many coaches doing that because none of them will have stayed in any particular school for a while. I mean, Spurrier is a Gator, was a Gator, will always be a Gator. But, you know, subsequent to that, everybody else who's come in to the University of Florida has just been kind of the next hire. I mean, Will Muschamp was from Gainesville, but went to Georgia. So, I think that the long term of this is that there's going to be a domino effect among school presidents who are going to look at the budget of football and the recruiting budget and then say, okay, collaboratively with other school presidents, we need to make our ADs create a conference combine, not a countrywide combine, but the SEC, as it continues to expand, is going to have enough schools where they could have their own combine and recruit guys right out of that. And that would save, I mean, what's Florida's recruiting budget? $2 million? You know, I don't know what Miami's is, or certainly UCF's is a little less, and Florida State's is trying to increase it in order to have a national presence again. But I think eventually you'll see some pressure brought to bear on athletic directors from school presidents and then in turn football coaches to cut down on that recruiting budget. And that'll be you'll see the first combine spring up via conferences. I think that's where that's going.
Hey, George,
don't forget,
go ahead.
Don't forget Jeff George. Jeff George went to like 7 different schools between high school and when he finished his college career. So he was just a precursor of all things to come, if you remember that.
But I also think that we're talking good points, but when you talk about a big business in college football, you really are narrowing it down to Power 5 schools. There's not a lot. There's a lot of programs out there, the Ivy Leagues, all that. That's not $1 million or $1 billion, $1 million industry. Those are some of these, the deals are not money makers. So what we're talking about really is the schools, the Alabamas, the Floridas, the Notre Dames of the world. But there's probably the majority of programs out there. They're just struggling to pay the bills, I would think. But this does go back to it is very top heavy in terms of what's going on with transfer portals, with coaches, with the push for playoffs. It is a big business, but we're talking limited amount of schools in that pot.